Welcome to episode 29 of the Dan John podcast from danjohnuniversity.com. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about something that I was wrong about. Now, the number of times I've admitted I'm wrong in my life is now 2. In 1963, I thought I was wrong about something, but it turned out I was right, so I'll still count that one. But here's an interesting thing. As some of you know who you listen to me, I tend to get a little ranty when people ask certain kinds of questions. There's certain exercises I don't necessarily like. I'll explain why I like them, and it's like, and then people keep asking, why don't you like them? And I keep feeling like, well, I did explain that, but you keep asking the same question. I'm not going to change my mind. You're not going to change my mind, but you're totally free to do anything you want. So let's put that here. The big issue is this. People ask me about other people's programs I have nothing to do with. I didn't write. I wasn't part of the evolution of it. I might know the person personally, eat dinner at their house, maybe even be, good friends with them. But when you ask about these programs, and I guess the best examples would be RIP's Starting Strength, Simple and Sinister. I get those questions all the time. Even some people will ask me about Marty Gallagher's one workout a week program, by the way, which I think is marvelous. But I didn't realize something. And thankfully, the gentle listeners have told me this. I've received a number of thank you emails and little notes here and there for talking about these issues because, and I've got nothing against it, but there's a thing that kind of gets me a little bit. Where if you do go to the forums, you go to the sites and you ask a question, I'm struggling. What I've been told is the response is always this: just follow the program. Well, I can't because of the following reasons. Well, then just follow the program. Well, I'm stalled out. Well, just follow the program. And that is something I've never been comfortable with. I'm a big believer as a coach, and I think you're crazy if you don't believe what I'm about to say, in the feedback loop. Every single program I have, what you might miss is the loop. We went through this program 3, 4, 10, 15 times and kept getting better and better because when we write the program, and universally I've done every program I've ever written for you or anybody else, I then give it to you, or Paul, or Brian, or Lindsay, or Kelly, and we start to do it. And then all of a sudden, and by the way, it might be brilliant on paper. It might be brilliant on a spreadsheet. But in the practical use, there's glaring errors. Well, the moment you say, hey, Dan, here's the problem I'm having, my job as the coach is to go, oh, you're right. I didn't think that through. And so your feedback makes the program better. A good example is what's happening right now with Brian. Brian is the guy behind the scenes who runs Dan John University. Well, he's doing the easy strength program with the complexes. Well, he has his own little goal. He wants to increase his clean and press. So we took the program, so he's doing snatches and clean and press. By the way, this is a great idea. And yet he ran into a problem because complex A, which was done alternatively with complex C, has a lot of pressing in it. Well, he was pressing with high reps and then pressing for strength, and he was getting too much pressing in, which some people would disagree with, but for those of us who've ever done a lot of pressing, it happens. So in about a 30-second conversation, Brian and I switched him to just doing complex C, which is snatch, overhead squat, back squat, good morning, row, snatch, grip, deadlift, sets of 8, 5 or 3, back to back to back to back, and boom, wouldn't you know it, within a few days, he gets his lifetime best clean and press. Yay for us, yay for us. We are so great. And that's the key here. Because he told me there was a problem, we were able to get that. A great way to think of being a coach is like being a captain of a sailboat. We know we're going in this direction, but the wind is blowing funny, so I have to tack back and forth until we get to the port that we want to be at. Sometimes when you put together a program, you spend yourself as a ship's captain spinning that wheel and adjusting those sails a lot more than you would think. It's coaching is not like being a power boat where you just go and just point the bow and just go. So feedback is so important. If I was running a specific kind of program, and I do this, I would have a forum where people would ask questions, and as we answer those questions and fix those questions, we would begin to use those to develop Dan John Wonderful Program 1.0, Wonderful Program 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 9.7. Okay? I think Jim Wendler does a real good job with this with 531, because there is a template called 531, and in it is a whole bunch of variations of the basic program. And then there's a whole other section, which I think is marvelous, of different additional tools you can add on to it. And I think Jim is a real leader in our field because, yes, he has a program with a template, but then he has all these options depending on what's going on in your life. And I just think it's genius. So if I am part of your feedback loop, I have to catch myself and remind myself, and honestly, it's an honor to be part of the feedback loop. And I know a lot of people online are probably rolling their eyes right now, but it's nice when someone trusts you with, one of the most precious possessions they have, their body. And they're trying to improve their body. They're trying to improve their systems. And they ask for help. I've got to be kinder and to assist. So even though I don't feel like I'm an expert on everybody else's programs, I think I'm good with helping you with the issues that come up. And folks, let me tell you, if you live like a hermit and you have a trust fund and you have great training partners and somebody else cooks your food and you sleep 12 hours a night, you could probably do just about any program you decide to do. But for the rest of us, as I'm speaking, I'm getting questions. I travel a lot, so people ask me about this thing called the coronavirus. Well, I didn't even consider the coronavirus, and yet now I have to start thinking about my travel plans with the coronavirus. Well, that's great. Well, it snowed the other day. Well, that changed my workout because you can't do the workout I want to do because it snowed. What I'm saying, folks, is I have a real life. I've had people throw up on me, my daughters. I had the other day my dog throw up on the floor as I was going out to the gym. Well, if your dog vomits on the floor, today's workout's going to be slightly different than what you planned. For one thing, you'll probably stay fasting just a little longer than you thought because you have no interest in food after your dog vomits all over the carpet. The carpet. He missed the hardwood floor, which is easy to clean. Thank you, Sirius Black. So I'm going to do my best to be much more helpful when it comes to this kind of thing. And for those of you who do coach, those who do train, the best gift you have is that feedback loop with your client. When you ask them, what did you think of this? And if they say, the first blank was good and then X happened, take a note of it, either physically take a note of it or mentally take a note of it, and constantly make things a little better. That's what we're striving for, folks. It's like in the Brothers Karamazov, the very famous thing with Father Zosima. What we're trying to do here is bit by bit get a little better. In throwing, John Powell had that great line. Yard by yard, it's hard, but inch by inch, it's a cinch. I think the feedback loop is that inch by inch improvement that makes good coaches great coaches. It makes okay programs pretty good programs. And by the way, in my world, my vision, pretty good is the highest thing I can say about a program. So thank you, and keep sending those questions to me. Okay, folks, we got a question from Noam. Why do you think that to this day people use the bodybuilding methods That is, attacking the shoulders or pecs from 3 different directions to failure, isolation, etc. If the big compound lifts and movements work best. Boy, that is a delightful question, but let's finish up because it's going to be one answer here. Isn't using the most effective method the best thing to do, which ultimately triumphs? No, we need to talk about all kinds of things in life. Why historically or theologically do you think it's still so prevalent? And you nailed it right there. First off, why do people slam their face against the wall? I taught high school a long time, and I have some friends now. I'm a little bit older. I'm not in that time anymore, but I have friends who have teenagers. And you'll sit down with a teenager, or they'll say, I just can't believe what my kid is doing. The kid is smoking dope, watching internet all night, not sleeping. The grades are terrible. They're not going to get into college. Yeah. So don't we all know, this is very probably more true for the Americans listening, but don't we all kind of know in the United States that there's this little kind of period in your life where you make the most important decisions of your life? Now, you can fix them later, but it's geometrically more difficult to go to college in your 30s than it is in your 20s. And I would say it goes this way when you're 40s and your 50s, trying to get that bachelor's degree or GED. Generally, even if you tell somebody, you grab them by the collar and go, listen to me, you know better, they still do it wrong. Somebody asked me the secret to financial success, and I said, well, number 1, remain a virgin until 35. Number 2, get as many degrees as you can before the age of 21. Never drink, never socialize, and invest 70% of your money from age 18 to age 34. Then live your life. And then they say, well, that doesn't sound very fun. Oh, I thought you wanted financial success versus fun. Welcome to the balance. So you ask a good question. I just lovingly, and I mean the word lovingly, wrote the foreword to Dave Draper's new book. And it is an honor. Dave was my hero in my youth. I got to know him. And as many of you may or may not know, he has some health issues, and let's hope for the best. But in my foreword, he asked Zabo a good question. And what's the best exercise for biceps? Curls. Chest, incline bench. Triceps, overhead press. Legs, squats. Back, deadlift. Nothing's changed since 1964. We all know that the big lifts are the best thing. If you're getting ready for a contest, a bodybuilding contest, there probably is some value, though some people argue this is not true, of doing isolation work. One of the reasons you want to do isolation work as you're getting close to a contest or a photo shoot is that you're dieting so hard. You are drastically cutting your calories. When I help a guy get ready for Mr. Utah years ago, his last month, and you're going to hear what I'm about to say correctly, he survived on lettuce and marijuana. He was stoned constantly. I don't know how he ate that little. And when we were helping him work out, my job was to help pick him up off the floor and get him going again. When you're that shredded, that ripped, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of extra juice to work the brain panel. So to have someone squat heavy in that situation would really put them on the edge, of safety. But leg extension and leg curl, you could push them to the extreme and still be safe. I hope you heard, Noam, my point. If you are at the extremes of definition, getting ready for a contest or a photo shoot, compound exercises will isolation exercises are probably safer and better because you can push into the burn there without hurting yourself. You don't want to be in an exhausted state doing heavy deadlifts. You don't. That's just a recipe for disaster, or heavy squats, or heavy bench press. I have a good friend, a thrower friend, who read an article one time that not using your thumbs on the bench press would help you bench press more. I said, okay, did it. Weight slid off and hit him right here across the face. Massive. He has none of his original teeth anymore. And his jaw's been fixed twice. Imagine doing that in a depleted state. Then he might have caught it here and we wouldn't even be discussing him in the living sense anymore. But to get there, so first, practically there are good reasons for isolation exercises. Practically. For the bulk of us, we just need the big exercises. But in special cases, we need those isolations. Now here's the issue. Some young lifter goes in and sees the program of a guy getting ready for Mr. America, and he says, well, that's what I need to do. With my 105-pound bench press, I need to, do the cable crossover stuff. No, you don't. You need to get that bench press up to 400 pounds. And trust me, you're going to look good. You ask a good question theologically here. In theology, I have a word called steno symbol. And steno symbol means a word with only one meaning. The word gay means happy. The word gay means happy. The word gay means happy. You can no longer sing the song, Don We Now Are Gay Apparel at a high school in America because the kids will laugh. Because there is a new steno symbol for the word gay. When somebody says weightlifting, what most people think is the steno symbol bodybuilding. Now this happened in 1975 with the publication of two things. Pumping Iron the movie and the publication of Arnold, the Education of a Bodybuilder, which just blew up. It had to be one of the most influential, game-changing books in our sports history, our lifting's history, because it took weightlifting and it blew it up into all the mega gyms you see now. Interesting at the same time, you're going to get that first video cassette workouts invented by, lover or hater, Jane Fonda. So what's going to happen at this time is this idea of going for the burn. So go for the burn from the aerobic side and go from the burn from the bodybuilding side. And today, actually literally a generation later, that's become the steno symbol of what we do. In reality, in your experience will tell you that the basics will work better. You are pushing against a steno symbol. Weightlifting is bodybuilding. Weightlifting is bodybuilding. Weightlifting is bodybuilding. That you're not going to be able to break out. So no, it's a great question. And it's something I constantly deal with. Constantly. If I say to a basketball team we're in a weightlift, the first thing they do is do that. That's the very first thing they do. If you ask my grandson Danny what I do in my gym, he'll go, that's a steno symbol. So one of the things you need to work on as a person is breaking out steno symbols. I'm the tail end of the baby boom. And one of the things I've noticed about baby boomers, my daughters will say to me all the time, oh, thanks boomer, or something like that, is that many boomers love to live with a single steno symbol. If you mention a person in history, they will instantly have a phrase or a term that negates anything they did well. One of the things you need to do is break out of steno symbol thinking and step back and look at the big picture. Did John F. Kennedy have some flaws? Yes, he did. Did Lyndon Johnson have flaws? Yes, he did. But that doesn't mean you can ignore all the great things they did. Listen, everybody's got flaws, including me and including you, Noel. So our job is to constantly step back as coaches, trainers, and athletes and see the big picture and try to get back to what works. Great question. Thank you very much. My friend Taylor asks a question. How plausible is the story of Milo and the bull? Milo or Milo, I've heard it said both ways. For those you don't know, Milo was a young child, wanted to be a strength athlete, so he picked up a calf and walked around with it. By the way, he didn't do reverse curls with it. He put it on his back and he carried it. He was doing loaded carries to get stronger, folks. And then, of course, every day the calf got bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the end of time, he was carrying a bull. How true is the story? Well, I've read a bunch of things about this guy. I tell you one thing, this guy could eat. But I want to add one more thing, Taylor. Whether it's true or not, I don't care. Though actually, you could do worse than doing that every day. Pick up something heavy, walk a mile, and every day add a pound. If you did that for 360, start off day one with a pound, end up on day, in 1 year, 365 pounds. Yeah, you'd be strong. Write that down. The most interesting about Milo is his father-in-law was Pythagoras. You know, Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And Pythagoras wasn't just a guy who basically changed geometry for us. He was also a philosopher, but he was also a coach at the Olympics. I like this guy. One little thing. So your father-in-law is Pythagoras, and Pythagoras, by the way, is very famous for how you should achieve immortality. He said, write a book, plant a tree, build a house, have a child. Isn't that lovely? Those are the 4 styles of immortality. So I am thinking that what you need to know from this story, true or false, is this. And there's 2 things. One, Milo gives us this 2 concepts. One of progressive resistance exercise, but also, and you might miss it, the value of loaded carries in this field. Number 2 is the influence of Pythagoras. Now, Pythagoras and that whole group, Euclid and the gang, gives us something called geometry. And geometry is the basis of philosophy. Philosophy is the basis of theology. But I also argue that geometry is the basis of appropriate strength training. The first question I always ask people is, what are your, given to prove, geometric proofs? The first question I usually ask somebody is, what equipment do you have? And they say, I've got this and this. Oh, okay. That's your givens. What exercises do you know? Well, I know these 5. Well, my job putting a program for you is, given your givens, we will then put together a program. It all comes from geometry. The bulk of my coaching comes from geometry. And I have to give a thank you to Pythagoras and, of course, his son-in-law, Milo. We have a question from Nigel. How important is nutrition timing in your view? Okay, this is going to be one of those things, I got to tell you, that's a spectrum question. It is a lot of shades of gray. It's 50 shades of gray. Write that down. That might be a good title for a book. If I'm doing intermittent fasting from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m., but I work out at 5:30 a.m., do I need to worry? And now a little bit about Nigel. I'm a former high-level rugby player just trying to stay in shape and lose about 15 pounds. I mostly do park bench workouts and will be doing easy strength soon. Oh boy, I mean, that's your training is actually not bad at all to support intermittent fasting. Real quick thing for those of you who missed my point. If you're doing something that long, he's doing what, a 16-hour fast there? Yeah, close enough. He's doing a fairly long fast, which, can have some stress on the body. If he has a stressful program, it's going to be hard for him to have a stressful diet and a stressful training program. But if you do park bench, very reasonable program, easy strength, very reasonable program, he can stay focused during that intermittent fast. The question here is key. I work out at 5:30. Do I need to worry? No. In fact, I would almost imagine what you're doing has maybe even at an evolutionary level, maybe even a smarter way to do this. Because what's happening is you're getting your workout done, probably 6:30 at the latest. And then after 6, you're doing another 6 hours of fasting. So basically, your workout is basically emptied your liver out, or all of your quick stores, your easy burn carbohydrates, all you've whipped off that whole pack of matches. The matches are gone. And what you're going to probably be doing now is what you'll be living on is going to be fat. Ideally, you'll flip over into a fat burning mode. No, I don't know enough, and I'm not sure anybody does, about the exactness of nutrient timing. Certainly, lots of people have success with a protein shake very first thing in the morning because at night, you fast straight through. Other people have said, no, I don't get anything out of it. But in your case, Nigel, I am very interested in letting us know, A, what program you're doing, and B, how you are kind of up here from about 10 o'clock in the morning to when you break your fast at noon. I'm guessing that you're what we call Yarak. And Yarak is that one, Y-A-R-A-K. It's that wonderful word that is the vision a raptor has while it's hunting. The one thing I love about intermittent fasting, in my case, I don't eat until all my work's done for the day and I did my workout. So if I have to write 5 chapters in a book, I am just in the zone. People have seen me and they kind of think it's funny because I'm always sort of in the zone, but I'm more in the zone, which is a scary thing if you're around me. I'd be interested to know what you're like from 10 to 12, because if your eyes are wide open and you're getting a ton of work done, Nigel, you might have really answered the big question of how we do things. Thank you, Nigel. I'm asking you to get back to us with your workout ideas in that 10 to 12 period of every day, 10 in the morning to when you break the fast. Well, thank you for listening. Remember, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com.